Good evening and welcome to Ramadan Radio, Wolverhampton. You are tuned into In Conversation With. Now, this program is all about bringing a prominent person into the limelight, and obviously we get to find out more about the various walks of life where they are connected within the community. So if you would like to drop a question to the guests, please feel free to do so. Give us a ring on 01902 972 150 or drop a text on 07 440 420 432. So joining me in the studio tonight is my co-host Yusuf Shafi. Good evening. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum assalam. Is my mic on?
Yes, it is.
Wa alaikum salam. How are you, sister? Are you well?
I'm good. How are you?
Shukr, alhamdulillah, all fine.
Good. So let's talk a bit about yourself before we wait for Jane Stevenson to come on air. If you want to just let the listeners know a bit about yourself. I know you do a couple of programmes, but obviously because we've got a different audience, let's enlighten some people as to who you are, what you do.
Okay, assalamu alaikum. So my name is Yusuf, and as Sister Alvina mentioned, I'm here as a co-host today. Our main guest today is Jane Stevenson, MP, who has now, I believe, come through. So you don't need to know about me, which is excellent. We've got Jane Stevenson on.
Hello there.
Hello, Jane. How are you?
I'm well. Is this Yusuf?
It's Yusuf here. Yes, you're on the Alvina In Conversation with Alvina show. So Alvina's with us as well, but I've for my sins taken over to become the co-host today and have a little brief chat with yourself. How are you today?
Fantastic. Hello, Alvina, as well.
Hiya,
I'm
Jane.
all right, thank you.
Good. And it's been a lovely sunny day, hasn't it?
It has. I've been working at home, and I could hear my neighbours cutting their grass. And,
Right. So no time to spend in the garden, as it were.
No, sadly not. But tomorrow we're going to have a little bit of time off and have a little street party on our front garden for the day, and some of the neighbours are going to
Sounds good.
sit on their fronts as well, and we'll shout to one another
Excellent.
over the road.
Good. Well, you're live on Ramadan Radio Wolverhampton 87.9 FM, and this radio station is really an opportunity to get the word out all about who are the people in Wolverhampton who the Muslim community need to learn about and find out about. And we're blessed and we're privileged that you've joined us tonight. Thank you for that. Wolverhampton North East is a constituency where there's a fairly large number and a diverse community of Muslims. Hopefully some of them are listening to Ramadan Radio 87.9 FM. From your point of view, being the new Member of Parliament, I think this is really an opportunity for us to celebrate that fact and also give you the opportunity to say who you are, who is Jane Stevenson, and tell us a little bit more about where you started from in Wolverhampton as a councillor, I believe, in Tetnall Regis, was it, or Tetnall Whittick?
Tetnall Whittick. Yes, no, it's a great pleasure to join you on Ramadan Radio, and it's lovely to be able to send my best wishes to all Muslims in Wolverhampton who are currently observing a different sort of Ramadan this year with social distancing in place. But it's lovely to have the opportunity to say hello to people. I was elected, obviously, in December. I was born and raised in Wolverhampton. I'm born in New Cross Hospital. I grew up in the Merry Hill area. Mm-hmm. My dad he was Northern Irish. He lived in Bushbury for the last 30 years of his life. So I know most of Wolverhampton North East fairly well. My mum's family originally started in Wentzfield. And then I grew up Merry Hill and then near Compton. I went to school in Wolverhampton. I left after going to girls'
So you're a local
school.
lass?
Sorry?
So you're a local lass?
I'm a very local lass, yes.
From Wentzfield.
Oh, sorry.
So Alvina just said from Wentzfield, but you've obviously been in Wolverhampton all your life.
No, it's my mum's family came from Wentzfield.
Right,
so,
excellent.
Yeah.
So what we've got is
going back a long time.
Excellent. So what we've got is our local MP really understands local issues, and that's really excellent to know in a sense, because we obviously value the fact that you know our issues, our local areas, our people, and all the rest. and that's a great positive. The Muslim community, of course, come from all over the world in Wolverhampton, as I'm sure you're
Yes.
aware. And in Wolverhampton North East, we've got a mixture of people from Sudan, from Somalia, from the Gambia, from Kurdistan, from Iraq, Pakistani community, Indian community. And there are two mosques as well. There's the Quba Mosque on the Wensfield Road and Al Amin Centre, where
Yes.
this studio is based. From your point of view, how easy is it for you, to engage with all those disparate communities and disparate nationalities?
I think it's one of the lovely things about Wolverhampton is that we've got so many communities all settling here and mixing together. I sadly, before lockdown started, I hadn't got round every place. It's my intention to get round and meet as many people as possible. So I know we met at the Women and Families Awards, I think in February.
That's correct, yes.
From the centre in Park Village, which was a lovely event, and I got to meet lots of people from many different countries originally, which was brilliant. And I hope to be able to come and visit you in Woden Road as soon as conditions allow.
You'd be most welcome, and it would be an honour for us to host you. So, as I was saying, these disparate communities have come with their issues. Obviously, a lot of them have come from war-torn areas. A lot of them have come from areas where there's poverty. Their children are obviously bilingual and suffer the issues that affect children in education who are bilingual. There are housing needs, there are issues around crime, there's issues around basically becoming established within Wolverhampton. Now, as our new Member of Parliament, I'm not going to say to you, what can you do to solve all of these problems, because they're not solved by one person and they're certainly not going to be done very quickly. But from your point of view, how do you think, as our Member of Parliament in Wolverhampton North East, do you think you can raise the profile of these issues? And how do you think you can campaign towards getting some type of remedies, either through local means, through the local authority, or through a national level?
I think everyone needs to work together to address problems that we do have in Wolverhampton. I'm certainly not shying away from engaging with these very local problems that we have. The reason I'm a Conservative is because I believe in opportunity, and the best way to get rid of some of the social problems we have is to support business, to support education, to give people that sense that they can get somewhere in life. They can work hard, they can knuckle down. At the moment, it's very difficult to engage in lockdown, but hopefully I will get round these communities and really talk about those local issues. And if people are having immediate difficulties with things, do contact my office. Even though we're in lockdown, we're all still working. And my email address, I don't know if people
by all means, please
online.
do, yes. If you can share your email and contact, that would be brilliant, because I'm sure
community my email is jane.stevenson.mp@parliament.uk, which is, if you Google a site called Who Is My MP, it'll come up. My office phone number in Wolverhampton is 01902 722 026. And we are really keen to, I work on behalf of everybody in Wolverhampton North East. So if you have issues, we've been currently working on repatriating people who are stuck abroad. So we've got lots of flights coming in from India, Pakistan. We're working to get people home to Wolverhampton. But we're working on a range of issues with education problems, housing problems. So do please, I'm here for everybody. Please approach my office if you do need help.
But
the way out of, some of the social problems, it's a very long, unfortunately, there's no magic button.
Of course, yeah.
But I hope we can emerge as a city with a little bit more prosperity, support businesses, support startups. There were some great small businesses at the Women and Families Awards. And I'd just really like to see people being given opportunity and a bit of hope in our deprived areas.
Of course, and I think the message will go out there, and the Muslim community in particular, I think, have to be thankful to you personally, because in your short time as an MP, you've already made an impact, a positive impact, in that we're aware of the efforts you made with regards to opening the cemetery during COVID-19,
Yes.
and that was a really useful thing, because a lot of the Muslim community, there's a tradition of visiting graves and paying respects and all the rest, and that couldn't be done during COVID-19. And it felt quite strange in a sense, because we could go to West Park or East Park, or we could go around the streets and do our exercise, but in a fairly open space like a cemetery where there's not many people around, to be told that you can't come in was quite strange. So I think a lot of the message was sent out as a result of your good work and your efforts on that. So thank you for that. Certainly, I know the Muslim community are appreciative of that.
I'm really pleased. I think for everybody in Wolverhampton who sadly lost somebody, it is really difficult not to be able to come together and remember that person in whatever way your tradition dictates. And I know the Caribbean community are already planning a sort of weekend with a church service, and then a sort of, not a party, but a sort of celebration of people's lives. And maybe the Muslim community as well. It may be next year when we're out of lockdown and hopefully beyond this crisis. It would be nice to have several events around Wolverhampton, just so everyone has the chance to come together properly in communities and really remember people that have been sadly lost this year. But I'm glad the cemetery's opening was helpful. I think
thank you for that. Just to explore the issue of cemeteries a little further, Wolverhampton's got a bit of an issue around land for cemeteries, and moving forward there is the concern that we're going to run out of land and space. As Member of Parliament, do you think that is something you'd want to maybe approach local authority on, or be able to actually support the communities? Because we're finding...
I don't know a lot about... I don't know Wolverhampton Council's plans for burials going forward into the future. I'm very happy to have a conversation with them and talk about the issue with them. But it is, many things are solely at the discretion of the council.
Of course.
I know that's important for several communities that don't cremate dead people. So I think we do need to plan as a city for burials in the future. But yes, I mean, if you, I think probably contact my office, we will liaise with Wolverhampton Council. I have a weekly video meeting at the moment with Stuart Anderson and Pat McFadden and council leaders. So we are, I think everyone's working together through this crisis.
So one of the other things which is very close to the heart of Muslims, and all communities for that matter, but in particular BAME communities, I would say, is the issue of education. I mean, we do have a lot of stats which show that children from Muslim communities have a lower achievement in comparison to other communities. Over the years, there's been efforts towards bridging that gap, but unfortunately it has not always come to fruition. As our new Member of Parliament for Wolverhampton North East, what priorities do you see you could play within that?
I think education again comes under the council, but if there are schools that are underperforming, if there are schools where any children, including Muslim children, aren't being given that really gold standard education, I'm very happy to take that up and go and speak to the council about it. Because my mum was a teacher. I was a singer for many years, and then I went into teaching as well. And I think it is getting children at a really young age, making sure they're engaged in education, that they get the best chance possible going forward into later life. So no, again, if it's an issue in Wolverhampton, then I will take it up and discuss it.
Okay, and obviously your doors remain open to community to approach you and to make contact with your office, and no doubt later on.
Absolutely.
You will share the number of your office
I can only help people who live in my own constituency. So if people are listening from across the city, they'd need to establish who there are 3 MPs in Wolverhampton. So where my constituency starts is Park Village, Heath Town, going out to Wentzfield, Ashmore Park, goes all the way across the north and over to Penderford and Bushbury. So you can check online or phone my office. And we'll check for you if you have trouble accessing that information. But any MP in Wolverhampton, if it's your MP, they will take up causes on your behalf. They'll investigate them. If we think it's a council issue, we're going to speak to the council. If it's something more national or something broader, we might write to a minister of government, or we might raise it in Parliament. So no, but we are here. It's the main purpose of an MP is to serve the people who live in their constituency. So don't hesitate. I'm really glad to be able to give this message out to people. Don't hesitate to contact our office because we're really keen to help people.
And again, if they want access to the office, then it would be through the website, I suppose, would it? I suppose if they just Google Jane
At
Stevenson.
the moment, the actual physical office, we will have an office in Fallings Park, which is really central in the constituency. But at the moment, because of the lockdown, we've not been able to finish off various security checks and sort of safety checks there. But we're hoping to be open as soon as we possibly can. But we're all working on computers at home. And the phone number, you can phone the office phone number, which is 722-026. It will come through to one of my staff, and we'll be able to deal with your inquiries that way.
That's excellent. Jane Stevenson, it's been really wonderful to talk to you about the work of the MP and the role of the MP and some of the issues, and there's a plethora of issues, aren't there? And there's no way we can cover them all. But we'd like to learn a little bit more about Jane. And what are your hobbies? What are your interests? What do you do on the weekend?
Oh my goodness! Well, I was a musician for many years. I travelled a lot doing that. Nowadays, I haven't got time to do many hobbies. I did take up archery a few years ago, so I'm a member of Wolverhampton Company of Archers. So when the field opens again, I'm looking forward to getting my bow and arrow out. I still play the piano occasionally. I haven't sung a lot since the election because I've been too busy, but I listen to music, and it's been a very steep learning curve since December's election, setting up an office and travelling between here and Westminster. So hobbies have sort of
left by the wayside,
taken a back burner at the moment. But I really enjoy walking, and I'm fairly appreciative of nature, so I often go for really long walks with my two dogs, and reading, archery, walking.
That's excellent. Probably... Good. And how has it been going to Westminster? Was it obviously the new term at school for the new girl? How was that?
It was. It felt like going to Hogwarts in Harry Potter. It looks a bit like Hogwarts in Harry Potter as well. It's a huge building, and it's very easy to get lost. I think the house staff who've been there many years, I think they must find it really funny just to see so many new MPs completely lost all over the place. It's an enormous privilege. I got involved in politics as a councillor a couple of years ago because I really wanted to help my community and help the city of Wolverhampton. So I'm enormously honoured to go there as an MP. I think I'll still be learning for many months and probably many years to come. But no, they do tours of Parliament, so I will mention this to people in Wolverhampton. It's your Parliament, and when it's open again, you can come and have tours. So if a group, I want lots of groups in Wolverhampton. I had a primary school from Bushbury did come down just before we closed up. And it was lovely to go into the education centre, answer the questions of the children there. So no, it's a really a good thing to do, to go and see how Parliament functions, learn about it. So I hope lots of schools especially will take up that offer of coming down to Westminster.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. And I suppose these are all the fun parts of the job, aren't they? Having the school visits and having the community invite you to their events and all the rest. And And unfortunately, you've got all the dreary parts of the job as well, where you have to sit in committee meetings and read lots of
Yes.
reports and all of that.
Well, at the moment, there's a lot of reading of papers to get ready for meetings. We're working. I'm on a select committee for our future relationship with the European Union.
Okay.
So we have weekly 1 or 2 meetings a week. There's a lot of paperwork to read through for that. We're all getting used to Zoom meetings and Skype meetings. So it's a new way of working, just as we get used to Parliament. We have to get used to a digital version of it. But no, it's mainly at the moment my priority, and the priority I've passed on to my team in Wolverhampton. We want to get through this casework and helping people at the moment. I think we're in a national crisis. People are very frightened. People need that, tangible help. So it is quite long days on the computer at the moment, but fitting Parliament around that. But no, it is. I think it will be fun, but at the moment it is very busy.
Mm. I mean, you touched on the COVID point, and in a sense, the Muslim community, like all communities in Wolverhampton or anywhere in the world, really, have been significantly affected by that. There's a disproportionate level of. We were actually chatting about this on the phone when we were organising this radio interview, and they have been disproportionately affected by the COVID. And so we've seen increased levels of illness and increased, unfortunately, levels of death within the Muslim and black and minority ethnic communities. We're not fully aware of why that is, and it's be a lot of time until we do find out. But from the point of view of the aftermath of COVID-19, what do you see as the strategies that government can put in place to support these communities who have been disproportionately affected? What type of either financial support or bereavement counselling support or other type of things do you think should be made available to bring these communities and the whole mantra of levelling up, essentially?
Well, I think levelling up was a big. It seems like a long time ago now that I sat in the budget statement and heard the Chancellor talk about levelling up and our big agenda of, really giving that sense of opportunity to communities that might feel a bit left behind in our country. As far as the Muslim community being disproportionately affected, I think I've put my name this week to, I think it's Dawn Butler who's asked for it, and Helen Grant on the Conservative side. We have called for a debate and an investigation to really get a good knowledge of the statistics and a thorough investigation of why certain communities are having more deaths in them. And I think going forward, we will need certainly psychological support for many people. And I think our health workers as well, they're used to dealing with, sadly, deaths every week in their job. But I think the number of very sick people they're having to deal with, I know people at New Cross are concerned that health workers' mental health is suffering as well. So I hope there will be the facility for people to get that counselling and support when they need it. I think it will be many months before we fully understand this illness. I think we have to do as much research as quickly as we can, and just the advice keeps going. All of us are vulnerable to this disease potentially, even though many people will have it with very little problem at all. We all need to keep following that advice, keep washing our hands. And it is very difficult to keep 2 meters away from people. It's very difficult to keep that social distancing message, but it's so important that we all keep that up until we have either a vaccine or some sort of effective treatment, or the disease sort of passes through and starts to disappear. But we all need to follow that advice.
Of course. Jane Stevenson, Right Honourable Jane Stevenson MP, you've been on Ramadan Radio Wolverhampton, 87.9 FM. It's the month of Ramadan, the month of fasting, and this is when Muslim communities all have a lot more focus on religion and a lot more focus on God and prayer, and these things are so important to us. And of course, the festival of Eid is coming in a couple of weeks' time. So we've got another minute or so. I'll give you the opportunity, please. Any messages you want to put out there to the Muslim community? And thank you very much for coming on. It's really been good.
Well, that's really kind. It's been a great pleasure to talk to you. I think my message to all Muslims in Wolverhampton is my very best wishes. I know what an important month, the month of Ramadan, is to Muslims, and this year it's a different sort of month for people. Often people get together for iftar with wider family and friends, and this year people are finding new ways to have that connection with one another, maybe digitally or on the phone. Eid this year, normally it's such a joyful, sort of huge celebration, and I think this year...
Okay, welcome back. You are listening to Ramadan Radio Wolverhampton. I'm Alvina, and I am joined by my co-host Yusuf Shafi in conversation with. Just before the break, we got an insight from MP Jane Stevensons on how she is addressing issues faced by existing and new Muslims within the MP constituency. Joining us now in the studio in conversation with is Zahid Shah and obviously Zulfgar as well, who they'll be talking to us about Muslim women's self-defense classes. Now, if you've got any questions to put forward to our guests, please feel free to ring in on 01902 972 150 or text in on 07440 420 432. Going to hand you over to Yusuf Shafi now.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Joined by our two guests here today, Zahid Shah and Zulfikar Deen. First of all, I want to start off with yourself, Zahid. You've been Wolverhampton's first Muslim councillor. I'm sure that must have been a great honour and privilege.
Yeah, first of all, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all the viewers out there. Yeah,
listeners.
Yes, it was, sorry?
Listeners, sorry.
Viewers, listeners. It's quite strange. Yeah, it was prestigious. It was a long, hard battle. A massive project when we started. It took us about 3 years, but we all fought hard, and there was a lot of people out there. I can't mention their names because it will take up all the time, but there was a lot of volunteers out there who supported, like the volunteers here who are supporting this radio station. Mm-hmm. So alhamdulillah, we got in.
St. Peter's Ward is a very important ward. In a sense, it's where most of Wolverhampton City's Muslims live. At the same time, it's a ward which is affected by a number of issues. Over the years, there's been investment and there has been development, but we've seen communities come in from all over the world, and those communities have been affected by issues of poverty, issues of lacking education, poor housing. There's a lot of social problems within the ward. As far as the West Midlands goes, it's one of the wards where we've got the fewest, the lowest socio-economic indicators. So that essentially outlines the key problems we have. As somebody who is a Conservative candidate for St. Peter's Ward, as somebody who is a member of the Muslim community, what is your main agenda? What do you think are the key things you want to work on to develop that ward?
I think that's an excellent question. What I would say is that for me, there was a talk about an hour ago with Brother Tariq, and a couple of sisters were on the phone, and they were talking about education. The biggest issue we have in St. Peter's is that the level of education, the level of grades that our children are coming out with from the schools do not warrant them to getting into good employment. What's happening is on the back of that, we're getting unemployment, deprivation, and crime. I don't want to talk too much about crime, but we have quite a lot of people involved in drug crime within St. Peter's Ward.
This is Muslims as victims and perpetrators.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm not even going to blame them, because I think sometimes the society that they're involved in, there's nothing out there. If you're going to leave school with GCSEs which are inadequate, you're not going to get a job, are you? You're not even going to get onto a good apprenticeship. You're not even going to get into a college course. If you do get onto a college course, it's normally a level 1, and you as a teacher know that within a few months of that, people, they abscond, and that's it. You'll never see them in education. So what do they do to survive? They either go and work at McDonald's, KFC, or they end up doing something like helping the local criminals move their drugs around, the country, around the city.
So, from your point of view, I mean, you've had the privilege of being the councillor there previously in St. Peter's Ward, and there's only so much an individual can achieve, and you had one term as a councillor. Obviously now in 2020 or 2021, when you will stand as the Conservative candidate, the things have moved on. There's a lot of change that has occurred. What are your new priorities? What are the key things you think the community needs to focus on and campaign towards working on? So you mentioned education and you've mentioned crime, but how would you want to go about that? What would you do for the schools or the issues of crime?
Well, first of all, I think I don't want to say too much, but there are very important people out there, a lot more important than us in here, who are looking to have a new school in St. Peter's. I don't want to say too much about that because I'm not too much familiar with what the plans are, but they're looking to get a school in, and that would help because we do need a new school in St. Peter's. There was a school Valley Park School, if you remember,
Okay.
Cromer Gardens, and they closed it down. I don't know what the reasons were, but that was closed down. But we do need another school in the area. I think there needs to be a lot of education that needs to go into the Muslim community at the mother level. And I also believe that if you educate your daughters, you will get an educated young community. It's something that I really push with my daughter. Alhamdulillah, she's a pharmacist, but I put pressure on her by, when she was 11 years old. I said, you need to leave school with something. And she said, why? I said, because you're going to be the one who's going to educate your children. And if you're educated, that's what's going to happen. So there needs to be some investment. Now, whether that investment comes in the form of the council or whether that comes in the form of the mosques, right, they need to get more involved in the community. Now, when I was growing up, we had Mullah Mashti Saab, God bless his soul. He was somebody who really worked with the youth and the community, and he developed us. And I was one of those lucky guys who was around him at the time, and we were lucky we had somebody like that. We need role models like that coming out the mosques now, right? And that's the only way we're going to move forward.
So it's, in essence, what we're saying is that we need to have, obviously, the statutory bodies, for example, the education department within the city or the local authority, the social services and all the rest. But until community don't actually stand up themselves, until they don't organise themselves, and through the masajid or through other types of social bodies, we're not going to actually see change.
No, we're not. And can I give you an example? I'm not going to name individual mosques, but there's a very big mosque within Wolverhampton, and there's a number of mosques in St. Peter's. And this mosque is in St. Peter's, 125, 130 members who pay considerable amount of money, towards that mosque. But yet, I've never seen something in that mosque that resembles any form of education towards developing the community.
So in a sense, what we're saying is community have to campaign, community have to focus on their needs themselves. As a Conservative candidate, would you want to be informing that debate? Would you want to be leading that debate? Would you want to be getting community meetings together, trying to get people to actually campaign? Strategies you think should be used in order to actually raise the game for the Muslim community?
I think fundraising is on the backbench at this current moment of time. What we need to be doing is we need to be singing off the same hymn sheet first. We need to get together and have a strategy to say, this is what we want to do in the next 10 years, right? And this is how we're going to do it. And this is the kind of funding we need before we even think about fundraising. Does that make sense?
It does, certainly so. So that's very interesting. And moving on from that, I think as a Muslim community, we are very successful in many ways. There's businessmen, there's people who are educated, who are professionals, who have achieved a lot. Would you want to link in with those and through those people be able to use their skills as well to promote the community?
Definitely. I mean, this radio station is, has come around because of one of those business people or business, individuals who put this together. So yeah, definitely. And pick their brains, because we haven't got all the answers. Somebody out there, in the form of a committee, will say, look, this is how we can put this together, and we all need to be having a very strong working, party where you can sit around a table and say, look, these are the issues. How are we going to resolve this? But there have to be all like-mindedness. It can't be about me, and this is a problem within our community. If somebody doesn't get the status for something, they chuck their toys out the pram, and then before you know it, they're away from it, and then we're back to square one again. It's like a bit like our community is like playing. Have you ever played Snakes and Ladders?
Mm-hmm.
That's our community. You move up to number 30, and then Snake comes along, and you're back down to number 1 again. That's what happens with us.
Alhamdulillah, that's good. Just before we move on, then, one other aspect I want to touch on you, and then that's the Muslim youth. I know that you are, on a personal level, engaged with a number of youth. And that's when we're going to talk about this later on with Zulfikar Deen as well, who's with us. But I think engaging that youth is a very, very important thing, because I sense from your tone some exasperation with the elders in the community. And maybe that's right, and maybe that's got its place. But I sense that you also want to work particularly with young people, to actually empower them and actually to work with them to actually develop them to be able to sort out the problems of the community. What are your strategies towards that?
I think first of all, we need, Brother Khalid, and there's another gentleman with him who've had a program that they put together for good parenting. Biggest issue is to if you want to empower the youth, you got to have good parents. And I don't know about yourself, I've had a number of people come up to me and say, can you talk to my son, or can you talk to my daughter? And my answer's always been, if they're not going to listen to you, they're not going to listen to me. I can make an effort. So, I hope that answers the question.
It does, definitely so. Okay, moving on then. So this takes our discussion of the youth further to look at the whole issue of martial arts and the whole issue of self-defense and around self-protection. Unfortunately, we live in times which are increasingly dangerous. There's Islamophobia is rife. Muslim sisters are being affected by people who are pulling off hijabs, people who are spitting on them, people who are abusing them. Men who have beards are targeted for racial abuse and all sorts of very negative comments, which, as they go about their daily business. Both yourself, Zaid Shah, and Zulfikar, I know for many years have been involved in the whole art work around martial arts and self-defense. So just to bring Zulfikar yourself in, what's your experience and history going back to working with youth and self-defense?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Self-defense is an art which is an effort to build the resilience and physical security of not just the individual, but the family and the community. And in that respect, not just the Muslim community, but the community as a whole, we are all affected by issues predominantly around safety and security. Self-defense is a countermeasure which involves defending the health and well-being of oneself, one's family or friends. There are a lot of aspects of defense that people can take on to defend themselves. In an ideal situation, we all like to be safe and be safe and secure from harm. But nowadays, a lot of people are out and about, visiting friends and families. It is very, very important. The first call of self-defense is, if you're out and about, especially youngsters, inform your parents and your loved ones where you're going, where you're likely to be, a contact number where you can be contacted. In the event of an emergency, if you visit local areas with friends, be careful what company you keep. You just don't walk into a group that you're unfamiliar with and just get involved. The likelihood is there might not be an agenda that fits in with your remit, and you could easily get into trouble. So it's very, very important to actually be aware of where you go, the surrounding, your own environment, what you're in. For example, if you're walking down a street, you need to be aware where you're going. If there's adequate lighting, move into an area which is adequately lit up, so you don't put yourself in a position where there might be an area which is frequented by people who you would not wish to come across. If you do get into any kind of situations, a lot of young people, especially ladies, you need to be armed with something to protect yourself. Some everyday objects would be very, very useful. For example, you could have a flashlight. You carry a small flashlight with yourself. If you get into any kind of trouble, you can flash this. Somebody will realize that you need help. Some of the ladies often carry hairsprays, a can of hairspray. You may have that in your handbag. If somebody approaches you and you feel threatened, that is another opportunity for you to use that. Aerosol cans. Again, if it's not a hairspray, if it's another can, you can use that. Newspapers. These can be rolled up and used in any situation. Physical self-defense and martial arts is something I've been involved in over 40 years. There's a lot of different styles out there, and one of the most common questions I'm asked, which is the best style for me? And my immediate answer is, the best style for you is the one that is more applicable and more suitable to yourself. If you're an individual that doesn't move very fast, and you take on a type of activity, a style which is very, very fluent, very fast, that is going to be totally unsuitable to yourself. So you need to look at what is suitable. A lot of this self-defense are...
So, Brother Zulfikar, just to focus on your personal experience with it, I believe you started off learning from Kung Fu, was it? Or was
I started years ago in Shotokan karate, which was a style. There's two main styles around at the time, over 40 years ago, Wadaru and Shotokan. These were the two main styles.
It couldn't have been 40 years ago, because you wouldn't have been a baby when you started.
I'm a little just over 50, so 50 plus. So I have been roughly in this game for about 40 years.
That's amazing.
Obviously,
so from that, you moved on to a more, I think the best word is dangerous type of martial art. I want you to really explore the issue of Krav Maga with us.
Okay.
And bring that in, because I know something that's what you've worked on.
Well, it's Krav Maga and kebab, isn't it? It was two.
We have moved on from... Shotokan is a lot of non-contact support, and in a lot of street situations, you want something a little bit more aggressive than that. And we have... myself and Zaid have come across Krav Maga, which is more of a combat sport which can be applied for physical self-defense. This can be involved to break away from a punch, or to stop an attack from others, or escape or knife or a gun situation. A lot of times nowadays the norm is somebody has got a knife. And 9 times out of 10, if somebody does pull out a knife, the chances of you defending that is 97% against 3. So you're down to about 3%. In any situation, against a knife attack, it's best to just get out of the situation. Initially, you can use a verbal situation to de-escalate or end the attempted assault. Personal alarms, again, alert other people as to what is happening. along with other everyday items that we've discussed early on.
So, as a community, I suppose what you're saying to us is now that we need to be, number one, aware of these different types of arts and these methodologies, these things that are there to defend us. But also we need to be a lot more proactive in engaging with them. How do you think we can engage people, and especially the girls? Because I think the girls are the ones who will be more difficult to reach out to.
Can I answer?
Zaid, by all means, jump in, but I just want Zulfikar to...
Yeah, the first part for any sisters is obviously to be aware where you are. And one of the main basic techniques of Krav Maga is self-awareness and scanning around yourself. At all times, you need to be aware where you are, who's around you, who's in front of you, who's behind you. It's no good walking into a group and there's about 10 people behind you with something to attack you. You need to be aware where you are. And if you're continually scanning front, back and around you, potentially you can get out of that situation before it becomes a problem. Okay. 9 times out of 10, people get into situations because they are in that problem and they haven't realized that they're getting deeper and deeper into the situation, into the problem, and they haven't scanned the environment and they haven't scanned who's around them, which are the potential hazards and who is likely to assault them. If you can see somebody approaching you, well, you just ignore them and stay on the spot. Obviously, that increases your own risk.
Zaid, can I bring you into that, please?
Yeah, go on.
So the whole concept of how to engage our youth, and in particular our young girls, in self-defence. I mean, first of all, is it needed? I think the argument is yes.
Yeah,
it
the
is
argument
needed.
is needed.
Yeah,
Can I just add? There are classes available. Myself and Zaid's obviously done a lot of classes. I'll do a lot of one-to-one. I've got 5 girls. I've taught most of them in basic aspects of defending yourselves. And I think a lot of the young sisters, a lot of the young daughters, they need a basic concept on how to defend themselves. And if we can get that across to the ladies, the basics of defending yourself, I think that'd be a good start.
Zaid?
Yeah, again, I think the mosques are going to be very unhappy with me. But
you need their vote. I'd be careful.
Yeah, well, whether I get that, the issue here is about self-defense. So again, we've got mosques in Wolverhampton. They've got big halls. They can get female instructors in, to conduct self-defense classes. I ran a self-defense class in in Birmingham with a mosque for a year with sisters, and my wife and my niece went with me, and I sort of showed the techniques with my wife and my niece, and then the ladies who were in the class actually carried on. There's that way of doing it. You can have the partners coming with them, or like as I said, the mosques and engage, if to get somebody in. There's plenty of female instructors out there who could teach self-defense. But just to say what Zulfi said, I don't want to scaremonger. It's not Crime Watch, but there's going to be Islamophobia. But it's not always about Islamophobia. You could be going up, you could be going up town by yourself, and somebody just jumps you because they want to rob you for money or your phone or something. So it's important that we engage in these kind of things. And again, I think it's important that our mosque leaders look at these kind of things.
So in essence, what we're saying to our community and listeners on Radio Ramadan Wolverhampton is that if you are interested and if you feel that these things are important and increasingly they are becoming important, it's about making yourselves present to your committees in the mosques and saying, can we set these types of sessions up? And people like yourself and people like Zulfikar are available to provide support and guidance on how to go about that. There is obviously equipment needed, and there's obviously a methodology with regards to making sure the sessions are successful. But whether it be for the young boys or for the young girls, and in fact, it's not just about the youth, is it? It's about the elders as well. Everybody needs to have that whole idea of protecting themselves and defending themselves and making sure that they can, in essence, if they are in a situation, be able to come out alive. And because of that, as a community, we need to have a focus on this. We need to shed light on this.
Yeah, can I just say one more thing there? Because you mentioned self-defense. There's myself, there's Zulfi, there's also... I'm not plugging these guys, but there's Merrydale Boxing Club, some of our brothers there. They teach. They've got some good instructors there as well. I think they'd be quite happy to come out to a mosque and help out like me and Zulfi would. There's a lot of trained people in Wolverhampton who, if they were given the nod, would actually go in and do some good work.
We need to be very proactive, and I know there's rules of engagement with men and women within the Muslim community and non-Muslim community. We all need to be very proactive and look at ways and means how we can get into a class and at the same time train with youngsters and men and learn from each other rather than use that as a disadvantage.
Of course, of course. So, there's some food for thought, listeners. In a sense, we've got the opportunity of hearing from Zaid Shah and from Zulfikar Deen all about how martial arts and self-defense is there for us, and we as a Muslim community should avail it and should focus on these things. From my point of view, thank you for listening. This is Yusuf Shafi. I'm going to hand you back over to your main host for In Conversation With, and that's with Alvina Ali.
Okay, thank you there, Yusuf Shafi. Just a quick one. I got a WhatsApp message here. You got about 30 seconds to answer. What would be the best self-defense tip for a very small-framed 60-year-old woman who is in relatively good physical condition? You got 30 seconds. What tip would you give to an elderly woman?
Fingers into the eyes. Into the eyes of an opponent. That'll do it, and then she can get away.
Just use your fist in the face.
Right.